We got some bad news to start off the show. Our rival, our sworn enemy, the Baltimore Ravens made a good move today. They signed cornerback Jaire Alexander on a 1-year deal for only $4 million. Incentives up to $6 million. So there's $2 million in incentives, and that's involves like snap counts and stuff. But you've got to be kidding me. Jaire Alexander on a 1-year deal, $4 million. And he was one of the guys that was brought up. Remember last week, whenever we looked at Ricky the Dog's tweet about the Steelers having some interest in potentially adding a quarterback, Jalen Ramsey's name was thrown out there, and also Jaire Alexander. And I did say between the two, I preferred the Steelers to go after Jalen Ramsey, but I didn't think Jaire Alexander was going to be willing to sign for such a little amount. 1 year, $4 million. Like, come on, up to $6 million in incentives. Like, that's crazy, man. Like that. If that was the case, if he was signing for that, which he obviously did, then yeah, maybe I would have just rather have signed Jaire Alexander for that amount than potentially it's still out there. We could still make a move for Jalen Ramsey and give up an asset and take on his contract. But you know what? Actually, no, I just think Jalen Ramsey is a better fit for our system. And the unfortunate part too is I don't even know if Jaire Alexander was coming here no matter what amount we could have thrown at him, because it seems like his connection to Lamar Jackson, the fact that they played at Louisville together, had a big part in him deciding to join the Ravens. But this now makes me question, this now makes me start to ponder, like, the Steelers have to be a little bit more urgent now in building out the rest of this roster and adding another piece on offense, but also potentially adding another corner like Jalen Ramsey, like we talked about. Because if you look at the Ravens, they didn't need to add a corner. They really didn't. They didn't even need to add a receiver this offseason either, but they got DeAndre Hopkins in there. I guess they could have. You know, you look, Zay Flowers, Rashad Bateman, and then it's kind of a drop-off after that. Tylan Wallace, Devontae Walker. So, yeah, Hopkins does kind of fit their third receiver mold. But on defense, you get my point, though. We're kind of in the same spot where we got DK Metcalf, we got Calvin Austin, Roman Wilson, obviously Muth at tight end, Darnell Washington at tight end, guys like Scotty Miller, Skoranek. We could use another receiver. The Ravens made it happen by bringing in a DeAndre Hopkins. And then on defense, how we were just talking about potentially adding a corner, adding another guy to the secondary, we looked and said, for the Steelers, Joey Porter Jr. is there, Darius Slay. We got Beanie Bishop in the slot. We added Brandon Echols, Corey Trice. We re-signed James Pierre. Like, you know what? We're kind of good, but it still wouldn't hurt to add a Jalen Ramsey. You got to be kidding me. Like, there's levels to this. Having a Jalen Ramsey in the slot, it's a little bit different than having a combination of Beanie Bishop, Brandon Echols, and maybe having a safety drop for that position. But the Ravens, kind of in the same boat. Didn't need to add a cornerback. Nate Wiggins, Marlon Humphrey. They got Chidobe Awuzie as their third guy. They drafted a TJ Tampa last year. They're solid at safety. Drafted Malachi Starks, Kyle Hamilton. They did not need Jaire Alexander, but that didn't stop them from getting him anyway. Having too many good cornerbacks. Like, their top three now are Nate Wiggins, Jaire Alexander, Marlon Humphrey. Their fourth corner, Chidobe Awuzie, who was like the Bengals' number one corner just a few years ago. Like a solid player. And then TJ Tampa is their fifth. It's a great problem to have. It's something that I hope the Steelers can partake in. I hope it's a problem that the Steelers can have at some point here this offseason heading into the 2025 season, where we have too many good corners. And, you know, what it would take to do that is trading for a guy like Jalen Ramsey. And he's on the block. I don't think there's any chance he's going back with the Dolphins. And if that Ricky the Dog tweet has any truth to it, no more Jaire Alexander on the board. Now it would just be Jalen Ramsey, and the Steelers were showing interest in adding a cornerback of that caliber. So it's like, all right, Ravens made this move. They're in our division. They're in our they're our top rival. They're bolstering up their roster. They're having insurance in that secondary. Didn't need to add Jaire Alexander. They did it anyway. Seems like they're kind of set on offense. Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, Zay Flowers, Bateman, Hopkins, top 3 receivers. They got Mark Andrew, Isaiah Likely, tight ends, Patrick Ricard at fullback. Lions halfway decent. It's like we got to go toe for toe with that. We got Aaron Rodgers here. We made some other nice moves this offseason. But, again, we have an Aaron Rodgers here on a cheap contract. Why not add another receiver? Why not add another cornerback? We can afford it. Let's go all in. Let's not mess around. Ravens aren't. They know the window that they're in. So why not the Steelers? That Jaire Alexander move, it doesn't make me happy. It really doesn't. It's a good move for the Ravens. He signs there at a discount. Solid corner. His big problem is he can't stay healthy. That's why he's got those snap incentives. But still, even if he hits them, like for $6 million, holy hell, that's a steal. But again, like looking at the reaction from not only him and the Ravens, it seemed like he just wanted to play with Lamar Jackson, his buddy from college. I don't know if there was anything we could have done to get Jaire Alexander in here. Maybe if it was more money, maybe he would have signed here. But Jalen Ramsey's still out there, and we still got a chance to make that happen, and hopefully we do. A Jalen Ramsey move and then another move on offense. Adding Amari Cooper, making a trade for Romeo Doubs, Christian Watson, something like that. Let's do it, man. Let's do it. Ravens are making these type of moves. Why shouldn't we? Anyway, speaking of the roster, as promised, we are going to dissect currently what we got and compare it to last year's roster, because there, again, are a couple of Steelers insiders that have differing opinions on what the Steelers are looking at this year compared to last year. This is just the beauty of sports takes. This is just sports talk in a nutshell. You have one circumstance that is sitting out there, and in particularly this situation, it's the Steelers 2025 roster, and you have two people that can look at it and have two completely different opinions. This is the art of the sports take. It's just how it is. Because you got Jerry Dulac, or this is Mark Caboli, sorry. Mark Caboli says, no doubt Steelers have a better roster than last year. Whereas Jerry Dulac says, Steelers are not a better team right now than they were last season. Jerry Dulac, how can we look at this Steelers roster? How can you have two people look at what we got going right now and have just two completely different opinions? But this is just sports talk. This is how it works. Caboli, no doubt Steelers have a better roster. Dulac, Steelers not a better team right now than they were last season. Let me tell you who's right. I think it's Mark Caboli. I think we've improved across the board. Now, granted, again, we said this last offseason, right? And we saw what the results were. But the 2025 season hasn't taken place yet. We haven't seen it play out. We can only go off of where the Steelers are right now as we sit here June 18th. And I feel like they have upgraded on paper pretty much every position across the board. And if they didn't make additions, we got young guys that are leaning more into their prime, like a Zach Frazier going into year 2. I would expect him to be better than what he was his rookie year. JPJ going into year 3. I would hope he's better than last year, because last year he had a little bit of a sophomore slump compared to his rookie season. So let's look at this. We'll go offense and defense. I want to break this down. I got some good graphics here. I want to start with offense. So on top is 2025, what we got going right now, and then the bottom is 2024. At quarterback, Aaron Rodgers. That's like the second or third line down on each of these depth charts. We'll go quarterback, then we'll look at receivers, running back, tight end, and line. That's the order we'll go. So stick with me here. Quarterback, Aaron Rodgers versus Russell Wilson. When has anyone considered Russell Wilson a better quarterback than Aaron Rodgers? Like, come on. Even last year. Russ looked better I'd say at the beginning of the year, or at least whenever he first started getting snaps with the Steelers. What was that, week 7, whatever it was, week 7, right? And we played the Jets in Russ's first game. Russ outplayed Rodgers. Russ was looking better than Rodgers for a few weeks there, but then Rodgers turned it up at the end of the season. And I don't think there's any debate. Rodgers is just flat out the better all-time player, and how last season ended, even with Rodgers being at 41 years of age, he was the better quarterback over Russell Wilson. Russ got worse. Rodgers got better. Rodgers better all-time player. So I don't even think this should be much of a debate. And then if we even want to talk about this upcoming season, my bet is that Aaron Rodgers has a better season than Russell Wilson for 2025. And I think the Steelers are betting on that, clearly. So quarterback, upgrade. Receivers. Last year we had Pickens as our one. This year we have DK Metcalf. I think you got to give DK Metcalf the upper hand. You could argue the talent. You could argue who has the higher ceiling. But who's better? DK Metcalf has proven year in, year out, he's a 1,000-yard receiver and pretty much getting you 8, 9, 10 touchdowns, no matter who his quarterback is. Pickens, some more ups and downs than a DK. I mean, we got to give credit where credit is due. He has put up numbers his first 3 years, despite the Steelers having some inconsistent quarterback play. But you also got to factor in some of the drama and the antics that Pickens brings to the table. DK Metcalf, much more of a professional. So I'm taking DK over Pickens. And then the secondary receivers, I mean, it's kind of similar. But we got Roman Wilson for this year, even though Roman Wilson, I guess, was technically on the roster last year. He's not showing up on the depth chart, but he didn't play. So we actually have a healthy Roman Wilson for 2025. Calvin Austin, another year under his belt, contract year, coming off of a 600-yard season. I think he's got a chance to be better in 2025. We added Robert Woods as like that veteran receiver, basically like that Allen Robinson, Van Jefferson dude. We still got Scotty Miller, Ben Skoranek. Receiver room is very similar, but I think what you can say is now we got a healthy Roman Wilson, and our number one is upgraded with DK over Pickens. So there you go. I think we're better in the receiver room, with another move still to be made, right? There's still another move to be had out there, as I talked about at the beginning of the show. Running back. I like this running back room better. Caleb Johnson over Najee Harris. Jalen Warren, he's still here. Cordell Patterson was on both rosters, but I mean, I don't know how he's going to be sticking around, to be honest with you. Let's not forget we added Kenneth Gainwell too. Kenneth Gainwell, Caleb Johnson, Jalen Warren, and then Cordell Patterson as our fourth guy, and Trey Sermon as our fifth guy. Don't forget we signed Trey Sermon out of nowhere as the fifth guy, battling with Cordell Patterson for that fourth spot. I know it's not saying much, but last year, Cordell Patterson was our solid 3. This year, we got him as our 4. Kenneth Gainwell as our 3 is better than Cordell Patterson as our 3. And then we have Caleb Johnson. I think we have a better RB1. I think he's going to be, I don't want to be disrespectful to Najee, but I was going to say light years ahead of Najee Harris. He's just going to add more explosiveness. He's going to add more pop to this offense. I think he's going to be better. If you give him the same amount of carries as Najee Harris, he's going to do more with the rock than what Najee did. You give Caleb Johnson 270 carries, 270 touches. I think he'll have more touchdowns, and he's going to have more yards per carry. I mean, we know what Jalen Warren is, right? He's not regressing at all. O-line, we got Troy Fautanu. Again, some of these this roster isn't even moves we're necessarily making. It's we're getting injured guys healthy, like a Roman Wilson and Troy Fautanu, and then we got young pieces that should just be getting better and better and developing, like a Mason McCormick, like a Zach Frazier. But we're also getting Troy Fautanu at right tackle on this offensive line, a guy that we drafted in the first round last year, and in the short amount of time that we got to see him in that Week 2 Broncos game was pretty damn good. Broderick Jones goes back to his rightful position over at left tackle. I don't see with Broderick Jones, I know he's a big question mark. I don't think he's going to be much worse. He can't be much worse than what Dan Moore was giving us last year. Can't be. And it was weird how their performances flipped as the season went on. Broderick Jones was looking like a mess to start off, and then he started to pick it up those last few weeks of the season, whereas Dan Moore was getting cooked. Dan Moore was looking awesome first half of the season. We were talking about potentially re-signing him, giving him the deal that the Titans just gave him. Maybe not to that extent, but signing him up long-term and figuring out Broderick Jones in the offseason, whether you trade him or you just have him as a depth guy, the swing tackle. But, like, that was a serious conversation with how good Dan Moore was playing. But then, as I said, it just flipped. Maybe he was going against some better edge rushers as the season went on. But still, like, Broderick Jones could at least give you that. What Dan Moore was giving us those last 7-8 weeks of the season, Broderick Jones could give us that at left tackle. But with the talent he has, the upside he has, and now playing his rightful position should hopefully be better. So I like our offensive line for this year. It should be better. Seumalo might be the one that regresses a little bit, may not be a better version of himself compared to last year just because he's getting up there in age. But he made a Pro Bowl, and, you know, I don't expect him to decline too much. I think the positives and the development of the other guys and the upside of the other guys should outweigh any regression we get from Seumalo. Tight end, Pat Freiermuth, he's been steady. I don't think we're getting much movement from him either way. Hopefully with Rodgers, Freiermuth gets an uptick in production. Darnell Washington, seems like Rodgers is a fan of him, comparing him to Mercedes Lewis from back in the day. So maybe Darnell will get some more targets, hopefully, in this offense. But I don't know. I don't have the greatest of expectations. It's just, you know, the bar has been set pretty low for him and his usage for these first couple of years. Like, Darnell. We know what his floor is, a great blocking tight end, but can we utilize him a little bit more in this passing game for the upcoming season? So, like, tight ends, I would say it's kind of status quo. And then we still got Connor Hayward here. This JJ Galbraith is apparently making some waves at the OTAs and minicamp and whatnot. Undrafted rookie out of a small school. Yeah, there might be another move we still make at tight end because Donald Parham went down with that Achilles. He was supposed to be our third or fourth guy. But tight end room pretty much stays the same. The only guy that's not here is Michael Pruitt, and that might be a good thing because you can make the argument that Arthur Smith utilized him a little bit too much. But we got this DJ Thomas Jones that may take on that Michael Pruitt type of role, but he's way more athletic and younger and might be able to be utilized in a much better way than Michael Pruitt was. Yeah, he might be a long shot to make the team, but I like the fit. I like the attributes. I like the unique skill set he brings to the table. And we talked about this when we went over the undrafted rookie free agents. Out of all of them, he might have the best chance just because we don't have a fullback. We don't have that, like, H-back guy. Connor Hayward should be – we've talked about him potentially fitting that role, but I don't know. I don't think it really works out with Arthur Smith and how Arthur Smith wants to be running this offense because of Connor Hayward's size. Like, he's not big enough to be an every down fullback and that be the majority of his snaps. Or even like a tight end, it's you just use them all over the place, and that's what we've talked about with Connor Hayward being a Swiss Army knife. Anything else on offense? No, I think I covered everything. Yeah, I think we upgraded pretty much across the board. Worst case, we're status quo at a few positions, like a tight end. So I'm agreeing again with Mark Caboli. I mean, that's the offense. We don't got to go over special teams because we got Boswell. Punter, we do got Cameron Johnson coming back, making a return from injury, and he should be better than Corliss Waitman. Like, he was a stud punter with the Texans. I can't remember what other team he played with before them, but he was borderline a Pro Bowl punter. There's a reason we signed him for the 3-year, $9 million deal that we did. Just suffered that awful injury week 1. But Corliss Waitman, let's not get it twisted. He was awesome last year. He was really good for us. But either way, like, if Waitman wins out the competition, then fine. Again, our special teams is pretty much the same. Maybe we get an uptick in punting with Cameron Johnson over Corliss Waitman, but if we have to run it back with Corliss Waitman, I'm not complaining at all. I really liked what he did last year. And then, Calvin Austin should be returning for us again. And I don't know what we're doing with Cordell Patterson. I don't really want him back. Like, I feel like Gainwell, there's a couple other guys that could probably be returning kickoffs at a better clip than Cordell Patterson at this point. Even that 7th-round pick, Dante Kent, he was doing some return duties at what school did he come out of? It was a MAC school. I think was it Central Michigan? Let's get the defense real quick, and then we'll get up out of here. Real quick, though, comment from Strike95. Let's check the chat out. He says, I hope to see us use the middle of the field more. We should with Aaron Rodgers. He can make every throw. You look at his passing charts, even last year, even in his down year, he utilized literally the whole field. Looked a lot less boom or bust than Russ's passing chart. And then for defense, it's safety. Like, we got Deshaun Elliott back, Minkah Fitzpatrick, obviously. But we had Juan Thornhill as our third guy. I think that's better than DeMonte Casey, and then Miles Killebrew's still here. We even picked up a Sebastian Castro as an undrafted rookie free agent coming out of Iowa. Like, that's a nice move. He's going to be competing in the slot, kind of for that, almost like, remember Trey Norwood coming out of Oklahoma when we drafted him in the 7th round a minute ago? He was considered, I was just talking about Connor Hayward being our Swiss Army knife on offense. He was considered like that Swiss Army knife on defense, playing safety, playing some slot and stuff. Maybe Sebastian Castro can bring that kind of back, like what we were hoping Trey Norwood could be. But yeah, just by adding Juan Thornhill, a guy that's a 2-time Super Bowl champion, was like a top 10 safety in the league for the majority of his career, as our third guy, when you already have Deshaun Elliott and Minkah Fitzpatrick as your top 2, that's an upgrade to the safety room. At cornerback, Darius Slay, he should be better than Dante Jackson. I think Dante Jackson was nice for us last year, but almost going back to the whole Aaron Rodgers versus Russell Wilson debate, who's the better all-time cornerback? I know Darius Slay's up there in age, but dude just won a Super Bowl with the Eagles last year and was their top guy at the cornerback position. I guess you can make the debate between him and Quinyon Mitchell. Cooper DeJean was also pretty solid for them, but he was playing slot and stuff. But in terms of outside guy, between Darius Slay and Quinyon Mitchell, like, they were getting it done. Like, Darius Slay, even getting up there in age, is playing at a very high clip. And Dante Jackson, he got the picks for us, but there was some leakage in coverage with him, and he was getting banged up. Darius Slay, a more physical corner. He should be better. He should be better than Dante Jackson. And then Joey Porter Jr., he's still here. As I said, hopefully he bounces back a little bit more for year 3. But now we got it kind of with the Darius Slay pickup. It's like, who's 1A, who's 1B, who's our 1 cornerback, who's our 2 cornerback. Whereas like with Dante Jackson, you still felt like Joey Porter Jr. is your number 1 guy. But now that we have Darius Slay, it's like, does Joey Porter Jr., is he like our second guy now? With Slay being here? So again, I think it's just a testament that we did upgrade our cornerback position by bringing in Darius Slay compared to Dante Jackson. Beanie Bishop, he's going into year 2. Had a nice rookie campaign. Brandon Echols, like, we didn't have a Brandon Echols on our roster last year. I guess that was supposed to be Cam Sutton, but he was looking washed for us. He was suspended the first half of the season. Then when he came in, what was it, week 8, week 9? Honestly, like, that's something that really wasn't talked about too much. Maybe it was a little bit in the moment, but I feel like when things got weird with our defense when Cam Sutton got in, because maybe the communication got different, because we were operating our defense a certain way with certain personnel for like those first 7-8 weeks, and then Cam Sutton gets in there, and it's a new wrinkle's added, and our defense it was weird as we were trying to get acclimated to having Cam Sutton back in the lineup. I think our defense was taking some hits. So I think Brandon Echols at this stage of the game, his age and everything, is better than having Cam Sutton as our like CB3, CB4. James Pierre, we got back. We drafted Dante Kent in the 7th round. Corey Trice, hopefully healthy. That's, the big thing with him, unfortunately. But cornerback room looks good to me compared to last year. Inside linebackers, Patrick Queen, Hopefully better in year 2 in the Terrell Austin system, the Steelers' defensive scheme, because we saw some hiccups with him last year, but still was overall productive, made the Pro Bowl. Maybe you could argue it was kind of a cheap Pro Bowl because he made it as an alternate. Peyton Wilson now should be getting more of a workload. We drafted him in the 3rd round in 2024. And he was, ACC Defensive Player of the Year, all that stuff, big-time athleticism. And we got high expectations for him. No more Landon Roberts, but Cole Holcomb's going to be healthy. We signed a Malik Harrison, who's versatile, can play inside linebacker, outside linebacker, definitely going to help with the run stopping. Carson Bruner we drafted in the 7th round. I like our inside linebacking unit. Maybe you can make an argument. You can maybe make an argument that our edge rushers aren't technically going to be better. Maybe it's going to be status quo. Maybe there's a regression because TJ Watt is getting a little bit older. Highsmith, we kind of know where he's at in his career. I don't know if we're going to be seeing like a 13, 14 sack season out of him, but we did add Jack Sawyer. I like that pickup. Nick Herbig, he's only getting better. So edge rushers, yeah, it's kind of like the tight end position on offense. It's kind of like status quo. Yeah, I would say status quo for edge rushers. But our defensive line got a hell of a lot better with the 1st-round pick of Derek Harmon. Cam Hayward's aging like fine wine. Maybe we see some regression from him, but Derek Harmon's a big addition to that interior defensive line. Keanu Benton going into year 3. Y.A. Black, 5th-round pick, should be our nose tackle. Daniel Aquale, a nice little free agent signing. Isaiah Loudermilk's back. DeMarvin Leal should be healthy. So across the board, offense, defense, I feel like we've upgraded. We should have reason for optimism heading into 2025. We should have more reason for optimism heading into 2025, even more than we did in 2024. And there was legit reason for optimism in 2024 because we were talking about all the turnover we had and how we felt like we upgraded both the defense and offense across the board. Now, you saw how that worked out, but I didn't think we had much of another option in how we handled the personnel and handled the roster for this offseason. We needed to mix it up. We couldn't run it back with what we did. Rodgers was out there. There were some signings to be had. We moved off Dante Jackson. We moved off Najee Harris, brought in Caleb Johnson through the draft, added Darius Slay. I like the Malik Harrison pickup, Brandon Eccles. I think we're in a good spot. I think we're in a very good spot. I think we should be considered legit contenders in this AFC. I mean, why not? Why not? With Aaron Rodgers and the roster looking like what it is. Like, that's a really damn good roster. Could we make another addition at corner? Could we make another addition at receiver? Of course. And I've talked about it. We can afford it. Why not? If we're really going to be all in, if we really want to be AFC contenders, why not just, fine-tune every detail? Why not get an extra weapon on offense that we don't necessarily need? I think we need a weapon on offense a little bit more than defense. But, yeah, why not get one of Aaron Rodgers' receivers, a Romeo Dobbs? Why not trade for a Jalen Ramsey and have him play slot, have him just all over your defense, playing safety, outside cornerback, slot? Jalen Ramsey? Like, are you kidding me? If you have Jalen Ramsey, JPJ, Darius Slay, my God. Minkah Fitzpatrick, Deshaun Elliott out there, Juan Thornhill as your 3rd safety. That's a lethal secondary. Peyton Wilson, Patrick Queen at linebackers with their speed. Cole Holcomb as your 3rd guy at inside linebacker. Malik Harrison could, again, play inside linebacker, helping the run stopping. Give TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, Nick Herbig a breather at edge on rundowns, short yardage situations. And, the defensive line. I mean, I like where we're at, man. I like where we're at. I'm going to go with Mark Kaboli, clearly, based off my assessment on today's video, that the Steelers are in a better spot than last year, much better spot. But that's it for today's show. I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Here we go, Steelers. Peace.